Today or for this morning, the last time I will be saying good morning. Welcome to the melting point of memories 96.5 FM, political discussion where we get to talk about issues, political issues and then things that bother us as a country. Today we're coming back home. We're going to be talking about a number of things that have to do with Akwa Ibom State. So sit back, relax and enjoy. This is the melting point of memories 96.5 FM. My name is Sharon MANDOR. Before I introduce the guest in the studio, a brief background on what we will be discussing. The Akwa Ibom State Executive Council has approved a draft budget estimate of 955 billion naira for the 2025 fiscal year. A breakdown of the estimate shows that while 300 billion is for recurrent expenditure, 655 billion naira is for capital projects. And in a meeting presided over by Governor Moino, the recurrent expenditure represented a 14% decrease from that of 2024, while the capital expenditure of 655 billion naira reflects a 13% increase compared to 2024. And for the 2025 draft estimate, the proposed recurrent expenditure is 300 billion, representing a 14% decrease from last year, while the capital expenditure is pegged at 655, just as I mentioned. According to the Commissioner of Information, the projected IGR, that's internally generated revenue, is 80 billion, a 28% rise over the 2024 figure, adding that the council approved both estimates and directed their submission to the State House of Assembly for legislative review and further action. He also said the Commissioner for Works and Fire Service, Professor Enoy Banga, presented a report on pothole assessment and repairs, assuring that the state was on course to achieve a no pothole status. In a major policy review, the council also approved the implementation of a 65-year retirement age for non-academic staff of state-owned tertiary institutions effective 1st January 2025. And we will be discussing this development with our public affairs analyst in the studio. He's also the president and the founder of Open Forum, Citizen Matthew Kofi-O'Connor. Good morning to you, Citizen.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Good morning. It's good to be here once again.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Before we go into the discussion, yesterday, a man that people call the father of modern Akwa Ibom turned 86 yesterday.
Yeah.
Someone that you can't go down the history of Akwa Ibom State without mentioning this man's name. His Excellency Obong Victor Atta turned 86 yesterday, and I saw the happy birthday from your organization, and you described him as the man that saw tomorrow.
Yes.
Can you break that down for us?
Thank you very much. It's quite an honor and a blessing from God for most of us, if not all of us, and even generations to come, particularly people like us that live in the Atta era. I've always counted myself privileged because there are some people who come to read their stories and they sound like Bible stories, some of them sound like fiction. And when you were in that era and you had an open mind, you'll be able to say, oh, that person is what they said about him, or it's not. What am I trying to say? Obong Atta was the first elected civilian governor at the advent of democracy from 1999. And he went on to spend 2 terms of 8 years. The mystery about his tenure is that, like it was said yesterday at the colloquium that was organized by Uyo Book Club, the founder is Dr. Demenana. He's been doing that for quite some years now, holding colloquium to celebrate Obong Atta on his birthday. And I don't think I've missed any of such. Yesterday was one of it, and it was quite something else. Now, Obong Atta, like the finance, is first finance commissioner, who was a guest speaker yesterday at the colloquium, said the first allocation that Obong Atta received was 300 million. First allocation, that's our month allocation. Now we are getting sometimes a region of 20 something to 30 billion, sometimes more than 30 billion. At I used to get 300 million. Maybe highest was maybe 600. At I never saw a trillion naira maybe throughout this tenure. It's a mystery. But what makes it mysterious? The kind of programs, the vision that he brought to bear are so legendary that ever since he left, we've had, this is the third successor to Obamata. They are still struggling to meet up with the pace Obamata set. Talk about the Ibom power plant, which is having some controversies now, which we are all struggling to make sure we get resolved, because it's one of the greatest projects we have that has the capacity to transform this state. With that power, forget about it. So you now look at the Ibom deep sea port. Was originally called Ibaka Deep Sea Port, and before you know it, the the science park, which has some issues. You go to the Meridian, you go to the airport, you go to even the Econet, which was, oh my God. You go to the Econet, and then a lot of things. He laid the foundations for all of them. The road networks, the opening up of here and there, and eventually we are getting better with those programs. Some of them are still in the pipeline. The mystery too has to do with his transparency, his accountability. Someday we're going to discuss it, and maybe I'll come with a document that shows you how Obamata used to publish the cost of each of the projects, and every budget year, how much has been put in. That is one of the documents that I have, about 25 of such projects. You see the cost. People don't know what the cost of the airport is there. He published it. People may not know the cost of the hotel, the power plant. He published them. Road project, road contracts. He published how much is being used, at what point, what was the total budget, this year's budget, how much are we estimating, and all of that. By the grace of God, that has formed the background of where we are. So yesterday, we joined all men of goodwill to celebrate the man that used to be called man of goodwill. He's now known as the father of modern Akwa Ibom. And yesterday, Open Forum addressed him as the man that saw tomorrow. And I was part of that the colloquium, and the focus was the legacies of His Excellency Architect Victor Otta, using the Interministerial Direct Labor Coordinating Committee to check impunity and demise of good governance and public service delivery in Nigeria. It was, and he bracketed, taming power with wisdom and patriotism. The lecture was delivered by Sir Sunday Udopan, the former Commissioner of Finance, and then he was also Finance and Economic Development. He was the maiden one, and the paper is really an eye-opener, the kind of things the man said. And all those that eulogized him, a number of his commissioners were there. Some of those he sent to Canada for training for Akwa Ibom State University, which we also established. Some of them were there. And I even learned that we have Akwa Ibom community in Canada. Some of those people that he sent, those that could not come back because things were not ready to, they are a community there in Canada. So I want to pray that God will continue to give him strength, give him good health, make his heart to be fulfilled, because very recently he complained about certain things that have not been done over the vision he laid, and there are no replacement, because you must have a superior thing before you can do without what has been there on ground. So it is our prayer, and it is one of our inspiration why we do what we do in Open Forum, because you cannot destroy a foundation that has been laid, a foundation that borders on transparency. One of the few persons in Nigeria that I equate with Obamata is a man called, he's late now, Alhaji Lateef Jakonde. He was the governor of Lagos State between 1979 to 1983. And I am a beneficiary of the man's free education. The same thing Obamata did. Obamata gave free education, at least up primary to junior secondary. It was a Akpabio that added the senior secondary And that's another talk we talk for another day. But to God be the glory that we are blessed with Obonwata, and he's still very strong, very brilliant, very brilliant man, and very frank.
All right.
I'm so proud to live in his era.
All right, Citizen, would you say from your perspective that you see us still being in line or in tune with the vision that His Excellency Obonwata had for Akwa Ibom State?
I would say yes and no. Yes, because successive administrations have tried to build upon those legacies. You look at the airport, like it was said yesterday, Obonwata had to battle through some naysayers who told him, his commissioner said so, people told him, what kind of person are you? We don't need an airport. Calabar is 7 minutes. So why do you want to build an airport in New York? It's going to be this and that. Obonwata, like I said, the way they led some community leaders to the site, like a hotel and golf resort, when he was pointing to directions, people were just seeing forest. They were not seeing anything the man was talking about. And they were looking at him as if, this man don't cool up in a witty. He was telling them the 18-hole golf course where this will be, and they were looking at a swamp. Behold, today, Ibom, the 5-star hotel, is a toast of the world. It was just a vision. And then you go to the Ibom power plant, the airport, like people complained. We are now the destination. We are now going to, very soon we're going to start receiving the world when His Excellency Pastor Moino is through with the MRO and the international terminal. The world will be coming to Akwa Ibom State because somebody was able to see a vision where others couldn't imagine. So some of these visions have derailed. Why? The level of selflessness that Obonwata used to conceptualize those things and the transparency that went with it have waned with time. So that you find some people trying to tinker with the idea, not with superior thinking, but because of personal interest. And that is what we want to guard against. All the projects of Obonwata. In fact, one of our advocacies which we have made, let me not say it here, we are going to begin an advocacy for some of those projects, like one of them that was turned to something else. Open Forum is going to, lead an advocacy that it should be restored to the original idea. Because the man that saw tomorrow, it wasn't a man that was trying to build his interest into things. People can fact check here and there. His transparency was top notch. He go to even industrialization. You may not be aware of this. There was no industry working in Akwa Ibom State. Out of about the 7, 8 or so industries that were inherited, including champion breweries, Obonwata resuscitated champion breweries. I think right from it was even the first time in office. And today, champion breweries is still working. But how about other industries? Even those that were built after, some of them went down immediately after they were commissioned and all of that. So there are things we cannot, for any reason, because Obonwata grieves when he looks back at some of those things and what they were supposed to have achieved for us as people, and he sees the deviation without a superior thinking. I'm even quoting his word. You abandon this, you've not bring anything superior to replace. You see, governance is not about building maybe buildings or roads. It's for given, it's for granted, or you give people loans. Anybody can do all those things, or pay salaries, pay gratuities. That is not governance. Governance is when you bring a long-term, something that will have a long-term impact, something that will be sustainable, and something that will add value and also add to the IGR. Virtually everything Obonwata did, none of them can be said to be something that will have been consuming money. So we didn't put money there. It was supposed to generate income. And some of them are just exclusive. Above all, some of those things were done when the Nigerian Constitution did not even permit. But he saw tomorrow. He said this kind of thinking, this kind of condition, this kind of laws can never survive. So he did things that the federal government had to turn around and said, yes, go ahead. And then the laws have been amended. Like the aviation, it was an exclusive list. Power sector, exclusive list. But he built the power plant when the power sector was in exclusive list. Today, we are talking about Akwa Ibom generating, transmitting, and distributing, because we have a power plant. That is why I've said everything that has been laid by the father of modern Akwa Ibom and others that were inherited, we are going to guard it jealously, and we will do everything possible to see that at least while our father is alive, he would look back and say, oh, thank God, I am seeing progress over the things that we did, because his mantra was, come, let us build together. That was his mantra. And I think one of his commissioners said yesterday, when they got to second term and a new set of commissioners came in, he told them, we are going to do the work of 8 years in 4 years. Because, like my personal principle, every second counts. So Atta delivered with very little or nothing, things that others cannot deliver with billions and trillions. It borders on the miraculous. So it is worth celebrating. And even we ourselves, with time, by the grace of God, at the appropriate time, we are going to unveil our own way we are going to celebrate Obonwata. And you can take our words to the bank.
All right, thank you very much, Citizen. Let's move over to the recent development talking about the 2025 budget. Before we go into the 2025 budget, I would still like to ask, from your perspective, would you give the implementation of the 2024 budget a pass mark?
I love the way you asked that question. Why? Because the issue of pass mark is when people are in school, you are supposed to be scored. And if you are sent on an errand, you are supposed to deliver whatever you've been sent, and then you'll be assessed. I will not give my assessment. I want to give the assessment that government scored itself very recently, and we can be fact-checked. At least I can't remember, I can't forget, I've not read it recently, but when it was mentioned, I heard it and I read it online. The Akwa State government said that the budget of 2024 has performed 25%. That was the last time I heard about the performance of that budget. And I don't think it's far. It should be just last month, about October or thereabout, that the 2024 budget has performed 25%. And if you look at 25% over 100, it will seem as if maybe that person did not attend classes. But when you look at the details, you will discover that Pastor Moino has a strategy. His style has been following up specific projects and not really throwing money around just to disburse funds in the name that you now say the budget has performed 70% just for accolades. But by the time you say bring the records, it will now become a very big problem. That's why I've said that my judgment is based on what the government said by itself, that the budget performed 25%. But as an analyst, I would say, I would want to ask question, why has a budget that has a master plan performed 25% as at October or thereabout? For instance, the government said that the project initiated by this administration, the Moino administration, they have spent 156.20 billion naira on the project initiated by the administration. And on roads, specifically, on roads alone, the administration have spent 208.16 billion naira on roads and other projects. And that was as at October 18, 2024. On emergency interventions, they have spent 4.04 billion naira. And on inherited projects, inherited from the last administration, they spent 47.93 billion naira. Plus and minus. I can still recall, we can be fact-checked, we are on air. Government said that they have in the state coffers something above 500 billion unspent. Are you with me? So, and some persons have asked, why keep the money? Are there not things to be done that you have over 500 billion unspent? That question is only government that can answer it. But since we are still in October, this is November now, depending on what programs the government intends to handle, those monies or the performance of the budget may step up reasonably to maybe 60 or 70%, and that may likely have us carry forward some funds which will mean so much to next year's budget. By the data given to us, I am wholly satisfied. Above all, His Excellency Pastor Moino has not taken a single loan since he came in. And you can be sure that he is paying or servicing debt, if not even paying. Which means we've been able to block a very critical avenue that we used to have issues. Like in the last administration, we had so many loans. In fact, the only loan credited to this administration, 1.2 billion, which reflected in the second quarter budget report, performance report. People screamed that, oh, Pastor Moino has taken loan. Pastor Moino came out and said he has not taken any loan. But since we saw this thing in the state budget second quarter report, which is April, May, June, we said, there's something wrong somewhere. Like I personally asked myself, I said, are there people who are taking loans in the name of the government and His Excellency is not aware? Until explanations now came that that loan was taken by the previous administration in the first quarter before Pastor Moino was sworn in. And what happened was that that very loan was captured in the second quarter budget performance report. April, May, June. So, Pastor Moino has not taken any loan. Very few governors can say that. Like the governor of Abia State has also said that he's doing wonders in Abia from what we are seeing and following up. You understand? But he said he has not also taken any loan. I don't know how many governors will be able to say that boldly and maybe show working. Now, he has also said something that he was going to set up a special fund, like a fund to address emergencies in future. So, Akwa is going to have savings. If we are going to have savings, anybody that want to condemn the idea of saving some funds in case of emergency, that person does not wish to state well. So I commend His Excellency Pastor Moino for that thinking. But overall, I have always said, and I really long to have lay hands on the blueprint, the Arise blueprint, because by the Arise blueprint, the various projects for the year should have been laid out. And in fact, we should be looking for funds to meet up with those activities. A number of some things happening appears like they are just developing, like the Lagos Towers. It was a shocker to most people, but by the time His Excellency announced that when he laid the foundation stone for the luxury estate, and I knew that a lot must have been done before he could make that pronouncement. So there was no point saying, Your Excellency, don't go and build Lagos Towers, because the design must have been completed. The approvals will have been gotten. And those things, nothing on earth will make them less than 5, 6, 10 billion. You want to stop that kind of thing? That wouldn't be wise. The only thing we have to demand is that that project must not end up like the 21-story building. With all the glamour, with all the fanfare, with all the hopes raised, they became dashed, and we have multi-billion naira project they're lying down unused. So we need to see the projects on the Arise agenda. It's not just enough, because one thing wrong with the aides are that they just keep repeating the word like a slogan, Arise agenda, Arise agenda, without they are being able to break anything down to pinpoint When Obonta laid the drawing table, yes, Obonta was called some names when he came in the first 3 months, about 6 months. The man said he was on the drawing board. He said he should leave the drawing board. He didn't come to be on the drawing board. And by the time Obonta left the drawing board, in just a few months, the impact is there till tomorrow. And it's not a matter of very petty things. Things that will take other states 50 to 100 years to meet up with Akwa Ibom. I tell you, particularly now that the economy has been turned to something else. That's why we are very mindful that every investment of the state, because we believe in participatory governance, we must be very interested, follow through, to be sure that we have revenues from there that will help us. So for Pastor Moino, I believe he can do something. He's likely to do something this November and December, because normally I don't know if that's still applicable from 15th, the financial year, 15th of December, about that financial year ends, and ministry will be tidying up their records and sending back their report. Any funds unused, you now return it to the coffers and you get ready for next year. But Pastor Moino told contractors at the aviation village, and I guess generally contractors in the state, particularly people handling road projects, that there's no Christmas for them. Anybody that wants to go for Christmas should not collect this money. He really said it, and some persons may not understand why a governor should stop some private workers from going for Christmas. I support His Excellency for that, because like he said, the weather here, the way it's been raining, whether you call it climate change or change climate or whatever it is called, you need to make hay while the sun shines. There's no problem sacrificing the Christmas. After all, I don't even have Christmas. The last Christmas, I almost spent it stranded in Abuja, where I went to do protest for the youth corps members. I almost got stranded. In fact, I arrived on the 24th and very stressed out, and came back to even continue work. I worked on the 25th, worked on the 1st. So there's no point to say, why is this trying to stop people from going for Christmas? We must take advantage of the weather and the fact that he has released money. Like the last money released, according to His Excellency, is about 50 billion for road projects. That's a lot of money. We are not talking about million here. So with all this, the budget performance may leave, or not may, shall, more definite, step up to maybe 60, 70 or thereabout, or as much as possible.
Okay.
That's that about 2024 budget.
All right. Thank you very much,
Yes.
Citizen. Let's go into, before we even go into the numbers, I remember the last press briefing with the Commissioner for Works, they mentioned they cannot work on the roads because there was no August break, and they've been waiting for this rain to stop. And even when, it looks like in other states, rain has already stopped and sunshine and all of that has started, we don't seem to be getting so much of sunshine here.
Yeah.
All right, so but with a projected 28% rise in internal generated revenue, IGR, for 2025, what strategies should the state adopt to ensure sustainable revenue generation while addressing potential fiscal risk?
I thought you were going to look at the 2025 budget. You get to that later, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good. For the IGR of Akwa Ibom State has been of very great concern to anybody who knows numbers. There are some states in Nigeria that their entire IGR times 2, almost 3, is not enough for the governor alone to spend in his office. The entire IGR. There are some states that 150% of the IGR is not enough for just the governor's office vote. And like I said the other day on Open Forum with the NKO on Memories FM, I just give a snapshot. I was talking about other states. What about Akwa Ibom State? SHARON, as we speak, the budget for the governor's office in Akwa Ibom State is 41 billion. That on the deputy governor is almost 1.9 billion. I think 1.8 something, approximately 1.9 billion. When you add that up and look at our 2023 IGR, which was 43 billion, the budget of running the office of the governor and the deputy governor of Akwa Ibom State is not enough. Our IGR is not enough. You know what that means. So, in case there's problem with federal allocation, how will the state survive? How will you pay salaries? Lagos State makes almost 1 trillion in a year in their IGR. Rivers State makes over 150, 200, or maybe a little more than 200 billion. I have all these figures. And then Delta is higher than us, but we are competing almost with Cross River State, with virtually very much. What can they really boast of? So our IGR has been questionable, and looking at the economic potential of the state and the investments of the state. That is why when the controversy about the Ibom Power came up, not just, it didn't even come up. When Open Forum saw the breakdown of states that cannot survive, not even cannot, can never survive without IGR, Akwa Ibom State ranks as number 2. 86%. We are 86% dependent on federal allocation. Rivers State is number 1. Bayelsa State. Bayelsa State is 92% dependent on FAC allocation. Yes, the resources that is sent to national to be shared comes from here, comes from Niger Delta. So how come our IGR does not reflect? Rivers State makes so much from IGR. Now, currently, at the federal level, last year's budget or this year's budget was how much? 27 point something trillion. Over 27 trillion, the federal budget. 2025, the federal government, they reviewed their draft budget, and how much?
47.
40, a little over 47. And do you know how much is the deficit? Deficit is that after all said and done, we cannot have this one, so we are going to borrow over 13 trillion. You get that? Which means a federal government itself is in trouble. But when they keep sharing funds to states, and they tell states and everybody that states are getting more funds than they ever used to get, people forget the fact that Naira has been so devalued that what we hear and what we see are not worth it. The only people that have been able to live, and some of them have actually died, because despite the devaluation and the humongous money spent within government circles, citizens are still living within the salary scale that they were in when the economy was at the Buhari's level. But now, minimum wage, some states have not started paying 70,000 or 75 or 71 or 80, 85, depending on the state. Private sector, I don't know who has been able to increase salaries, because they are even sacking. Staff are even sacking themselves. We have our own level of workforce in the office, in as much that we can't even afford to pay salary, so we give what is called allowance. That's still salary anyway. It has not increased. How do you think people survive? So what we've been having in essence is that we have very rich governments, both at state and federal level, and very poor citizens. Now, the federal government yesterday got approval from the National Assembly to borrow about $2.2 billion. That's 1 point something trillion. And next year you can be sure they are going to borrow more. And one thing may lead to another, they will start doing the ways and means of printing money. And there's a limit to how that can happen. So supposing along the line they don't have these monies to share, Akwa will be in trouble. And that is why we in Open Forum, like we do here every Monday, we started a series. Stop taking an agenda setting for an Akwa Ibom without oil. The monies we get from federal allocation is from oil money. Tax, which has to do with VAT, is very minimal. The entire VAT for last year, or was it this year or last year? I've seen the data. It was only 40-something billion. Akwa Ibom generated 4-something billion. So even if the tax bill gets through, and then we are able to keep greater percentage of what tax VAT is generated from here, it doesn't amount to really much. Though every kobo matters for people like us that knows the value of money, not those that are just accumulating wealth because it's a disease for some persons. They just accumulate wealth insanely. They don't even need the money. So we need to protect Akwa Ibom State from any potential shortfall or wahala, like our people will say, in terms of revenue. We don't have money to share this time, and please take this. So it is very important that all the industries must be looked into, like the audits that are supposed to be carried out. We proposed last week, on Monday, that His Excellency, the Governor Dr. Moino, should audit all investment outlets in the state. We also said here, with the guest we had, Enquiry, she came up with that advocacy which we adopted, and we've made it known to the world that no government personnel, no public officer should be a shareholder in any of the industries in the state. Whatsoever thing has been done in the past, it's time to undo some of them, because we have a list of all the industries that we inherited, and we know the share capitals of the people and the people involved. So every industry, every investment, the share capital, the people holding those shares must be known, because the money belongs to the people, and so we'll be able to track every revenue to make sure that the 80 million, which is the projected IGR for 2025 by the Akwa Ibom State Revenue Service, may be realizable. You may be shocked to know that it's the first time in history that we even had up to 43 billion. 2023. It used to be 23, 25, 27. It rose to 30, 33. And as at 2022, it was 34 billion for the entire state. When you look at the humongous amount that comes in, where those monies go to? Don't they attract taxes? The oil companies, is there no level of, they are, in fact, part of the investment outlets that should be looked into is the Internal Revenue Service as well, to be sure that everything is done to maximize whatever revenue that is supposed to come in and they actually come in.
All right.
Yeah.
Citizen, if you want to look at the figures once more, you see a significant increase in capital expenditure and a simultaneous decrease in recurrent expenditure. Would this impact the delivery of essential services and the long-term development priorities of Akwa Ibom State?
When I saw it, I didn't know how to react. Why? His Excellency Pastor Moino has been very lavish in giving appointments to bring people on board. He actually promised that when he was elected, and he told them he will give appointments in numbers and assure others we're going to bring you on board. And I used to canvass during the last administration that administration should appoint SSA for the 31 local government areas who are to report to him. But what we now have, that was never done. In fact, for me, it was even a senatorial district. SSA on local government matters. You understand? That will find out what local governments are doing, find out what the state are doing, and then report back to the governor. But that never even happened. I even understand that somebody was even SSA on local government matters. Nothing was ever done to feel if there was anybody like that. Now, Pastor Moino came in. What has he done? He has SA in every ward.
PA.
What, PA or SA? PA. They call them governor, ward governor. Every ward. And that's close to 400. About 300 something. And then you have even town unions of non-indigens. All of them, they have PA. They even have SSA. Non-indigens are also in the cabinet. And then so many. So what is the magic that the recurrent budget is decreasing? It should even be higher, or maybe some leakages.
Citizen, I just want you to hold that thought. We have a commercial break. When we return, we'll talk more.
It's okay.
About the figures, and then I'll just let him wrap up, and just also include what your view, or what you think the performance will be like at the end of the day, so we could pick up some calls.
Yeah, I almost running out my thoughts on the recurrent. I am yet to wrap my mind around why it has to be less with the humongous appointees, most of whom, or some of whom, may not even be productive enough, and generally citizens are looking forward to His Excellency overhauling very serious overhauling of a system to allow fresh blood and fresh energy, fresh ideas that will help him run. Remember, he refused to appoint a chief of staff and appointed I can't remember the name of the title of that person, who was to be a clearinghouse for him on everything. And as at now, maybe the person is working quietly, and I like such people. You don't have to be loud, but the kind of productivity we should have in the state, we are not getting it. I'm very blunt about that. In terms of the capital expenditure, it is a very welcome development to see that more money is going to be put into development areas. But beyond that, Sharon, the state government has budgeted 220 billion for roads in 2025. 220 billion. For me, I don't think I am very comfortable. Why? The economic sector. Yes, roads would open up areas here and there, but looking at 2024 so far, where also 200 and something, about, in fact, this government alone, 150 something billion, and then the previous government payment for those things, we are looking at maybe close to 200 billion has gone into roads, and next year is clearly 220 in the estimate. How much is going into industries, empowering citizens who are productive, who will pay taxes from these revenues? And maybe we should even consider setting up what I call the Akwa Ibom Construction Company, because the state government can make so much money over roads constructed in the state. Not just the contractors, some of whom are just, let me not go too far on that area, because someday we're going to deal squarely with such issues. So much money is being pumped into road construction. If that was the kind of foundation that Obanwata had laid, we wouldn't be here. We would not be here at all, because ever since that had left, we hardly see the kind of project that when money is put in, they will generate money. The ones attempted, like the Tropicana, they come stalled with, from what we hear, 100 and something billion dumped there. Others are like that. You look at the Takada Towers, billions dumped there. You look at the worship center, International Worship Center, the billions upon billions, which earlier statement was going to be funded by donations, but it ended up being government belt, and that's another talk for another day completely. So I am looking forward to seeing how much will go into the economic and investment aspect so that returns can come. That's my take.
Thank you very much, Citizen. We have about 8 minutes left, so let's hear from you, the listener. 0803 085 7755, 0803 085 7755, or 0809 066 6909, 0809 066 6909. That number also serves as our WhatsApp number, or you can reach us via Facebook. We are streaming live. The handle is Memories 965 FM. That's MEMORIES 965 FM. Okay, so let's keep the calls coming. We just lost that one, but keep the calls coming in. All right, but Citizen, I didn't get to hear about the performance. Let's hear from this caller first. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning and welcome.
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. That should be Faith. Good morning.
Yeah, this is Faith Logan from Bahrain. Yes. I want to thank God. Government is doing a very good work for women. Especially the one where government says anybody who collects money more than 100,000 to 300,000. Those people report that kind of person. So I was wrong. I thought that was when I gave some government this money. So I want to thank this for you to come and explain on this issue.
Oh, thank you. The one you are talking about, okay.
I want to say my issue now. All these projects, all these things which government do. Yes. For example, the farmers at their house, I didn't have any help. I didn't have any
Thank you, Faith. Let's take another call. Oh, we lost that call. But do us call us back. 0809 066 6909 or 0803 085 077. Sorry, 7755. Hello, good morning. Good morning and welcome.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
My question, I want to ask you, what have you listened to your there's a very particular one group and to complain for tickets now. And what have you to do to come for it? So the particular rules, they need to establish federal college education in evidence. We don't have access to it. I don't know why you can personally take up that very route. After 2 years, you don't have access to it. What do we do? So this is a case. Take up that very route. Let's engage with government so that we can do that route.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. David.
Yeah, the government has heard you, and like we advocate, we will also draw attention, and someday once we are able, we'll go there to see things for ourselves. For those that did not really understand what Faith was talking about, 100,000 to 300,000, the Christmas village, the governor, His Excellency Dr. Moino, got information that people who bought the subsidized stalls now resell them at 300,000, and so he has given directive that nobody should buy at subsidized rate, because government is subsidizing for those shops, and then resell at an expensive, much more expensive rate. And I think the commissioner in charge of that ministry, Sir Charles Udo, has issued a press statement, and I'm sure they are going to do auditing of that place so that those who are trying to do sharp practices will learn the lesson that they're supposed to learn.
Thank you very much, Citizen, and thank you so much for listening to the Melting Point on Memories and 6.5 FM. We're out of time. What's coming up next is the EBBO program. My name is Sharon MANDOR. Once again, thank you so much, Citizen. MQ.
My pleasure always. Thank you so much for.
All right, we'll have this program again.